So, Martins, can you shortly introduce yourself?
All right, thank you very much for that. My name is Martins. I'm a human-centered designer. Okay, I'm also a researcher and an innovations manager. I have over 5 years of work experience creating solutions across health, sustainability, youth employability, as well as education sectors globally. So that's me.
Oh, great. That sounds very interesting. So, how did you get into HCD?
Wow, the big question.
Yes.
So 5 years ago, I came across a book while reading. The title of the book was The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman, right? So while reading that book, I got intrigued that there was such a concept that allows you to create with the people that you are designing for, right? So I was wondering how I could be acquainted with the process, how I could become very familiar with that process. And I came across another book in my hunt for books, The Prosperity Paradox, right? And in that particular book, it talks about how you think that what the people need is a well, you give them a well, and then after a while, the well is no longer functional or in use. It was actually unique for me because at that time I was working with the World Health Organization as an ad hoc staff, right? I was in charge of a couple of local governments and I was also responsible for managing data and training the surveillance officers on digital epidemiology or digital surveillance. So I was looking for how to use my project management experience to be more impactful in the local communities. And that was how my study into human-centered design began. I started to look for courses. I started to learn the process, and I took some online courses. I read a lot of books. I think I have about a list of 7 design books that I went through, trying to understand how it meant, right, and how it all came together. That was how my journey began. And so from then on, it was courses and courses and courses, and then books and books and books, and YouTube videos and videos and videos until 2019, right? In 2019, I got selected as one of the top 15 designers in Africa by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in partnership with the Co-Creation Hub for Human-Centered Design as a fellow. So I can apply what I already knew, and they would also teach us their methodology for public health and vaccine improvement, right? And so all of this cemented my journey into human-centered design. I had practicing on my own, but this time around, I now had a more global platform based on the previous experiences I had already had, right? And then that was how my journey to design began.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really amazing. Your journey started way back. Yeah. So, what do you like most about human-centered design?
Wow. What do I like most about the process? Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to be very direct with you. You see solutions, right? Like wearing a shirt that fits you, right? A cap that fits you, a headset that fits you, something designed with the experience of the human in mind, right? It intrigues me. Now, the most interesting thing for me about human-centered design is it cuts across even the life I live. Because as part of my learnings, I came up with an acronym for my life, and I called it Life is by Design, right? And for me, as I design gives me the power to decide, to experience, to select the experiences that I will innovate and grow forward, right?
Yeah.
Also leveraging on networks that are existing. That now brings out one keyword for me that makes me love human-centered design, which is contextualization. The ability to tailor solutions, the ability to tailor experiences, the ability to take problems and flip them, right? And
Yeah.
find out that there is another side or another angle to the problem that we are missing. And there's something simple and something small can actually become part of the habits that the people already have, the
Yeah.
motivations they already have. And because human-centered design cuts across project management and product design, social and behavioral design, I
Mm-hmm.
love it. I love it. So that's what I love.
Okay. I think I read a blog that you wrote about your story, like what you
Mm.
like. Yeah, I read it. It was quite amazing.
Nice. So what did you learn from that?
Um, so I learned like what you just said, like we need something that fits the users instead of anything else. Like what interest if a business is starting, what do we need? What the user needs instead
Mm.
of the product itself. So yeah.
Okay.
So what was your biggest hurdle for you becoming a professional in human-centered design?
Mm. So initially, because I said my hunt was quite personal and it was the fact that I didn't know that there could be a community of people was difficult. So I had to pull all the resources I have together myself. I had to hunt and learn by lots of trial and error, right? So I always had this problem with, um, I was already good with project management. So I could not understand what phase of HCD I should apply. I would read somewhere, they would say there are 5 steps to design thinking. I read somewhere else, they would say that there are 3 phases. I was like, how do I reconcile all of this? Right? Then
Yeah.
I realized that in experience, this thing is different. The
Mm,
tailoring is no longer about the phases. It's no longer about the steps, right? So my greatest hurdle was in assembling materials, making sense of them, finding a community of growth, right?
yeah.
People of like minds that I can grow with. That was my greatest hurdle. And then the projects that I called passion projects that I applying the process for, right, would have made more sense if I was part of a community where people were also interested in them. But I'm
Mm.
also very glad for my process, and I would not trade that for anything at this time. Those are my strongest hurdles.
Oh, that's amazing. So that explains how you overcame that hurdle. Like you found the community where you can share your knowledge.
So I think in response to that, right? Uh, one time after I started practicing already, I had like maybe like 2 major projects I was working on across Nigeria and Africa. I got talking with Thomas from Proportion on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. And in that conversation, we started sharing ideas about the community of designers and all of that. And he told me about what the vision was and all of that. And how it made sense to me from the very moment he mentioned it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the power of community, right? In
Definitely.
terms of leadership, in terms of growth, in terms of collaboration, right? I
Mm-hmm.
believe in that power so much. So the the proportion human-centered design community, right, was a lifesaver, right? Up until that time, we were just isolated designers here and there doing our things, right?
Yeah.
And also, another strong thing that helped me was I was also part of some teams that I was working with as a human-centered design strategist in the US, and then some projects in Africa, like I already mentioned, Nigeria, right? So I had some of my friends that were already learning the same thing with me. And then what I also did in that regard was I had some people that were learning from me. I had people I was teaching as well. So that was how I started building the spirit of community. And all of a sudden, we could share learnings, we could share ideas, and then we
Mm-hmm.
could start seeing that design can be applied to health, to education, to the power, to agriculture. So yes,
Yeah.
that was how that hurdle disappeared.
Oh, that's amazing. So what are you most proud of as in your achievements as a HCD professional?
Oh, what am I most proud of? I can't pick one thing, but then this is it. I think it will be the ability to see that people who are like, who have no interest or who had no knowledge of design go through a process with me. And at the end, they become really, really fascinated by the products that came out of them, right? Now, that means the outcome of the facilitation process, the outcome of training other people with other diverse expertise or experiences to
Mm.
becoming design professionals, I find it as something I'm very proud of, right? And so it is the ability to actually create, all right, from problems, from challenges, from things that seem like they are difficult. And that field practical experience, the research, the experience, it's how you absorb the learning and actually become a sponge in human-centered design.
Yeah.
These are the things that I'm so proud of in this particular process, right? So I now realize that HCD is my thing, like literally. People can talk about it, right, as a process they use or as an approach or whatever, but I know it's my thing. Like literally, we are now 5 and 6. Like literally, if you wake me up in the night, I'm proud of the fact that we can create solutions, we can bring out strategies, we can bring out innovations. Some of them they will fail, some of them they would work, some of them will keep trying. Like realistically, we can look at experiences and tailor them and change them around. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, very inspiring. I'm sure this is going to inspire me. So I hear that HCD is now your passion. Can I
Okay.
ask something else that you're passionate about?
Outside of HCD,
Mm-hmm.
I just told you now that HCD is now like my 5 and 6, right? But now
Yeah.
you're asking me, you want me to bring something else out, okay? Um, I don't know if this is quite different, but I think it might be a different passion.
Mhm.
Um, for me now, outside of human-centered design, I'm very particular about social cultural behavior, all right? And social cultural behavior in the context of why are people employed? Why are people not employable? Right? How do we make experiences for people to become better? Right?
Yes.
I'm quite passionate about transferring my knowledge, right? In any of these regard, sharing them with people for strategies, for business to change behaviors. So I'm now thinking on not just service or products. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not thinking about behavioral design. Like as I stand, I'm thinking of behavioral design, right? I'm thinking of how we can bring that body of knowledge and bring it to human-centered design and alter the entire process together, right? I am really passionate about that. I'm really passionate about the spirit of community, passionate about youth employability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And passionate strongly about public health. All right. Thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. So, what is your big plan for the coming years? Could be 5, 10.
My big dream.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. First, I would like to see Africa become a place where solutions literally just come out of, right?
Mhm.
I would like to see that there are lots of innovators in communities. I would like to see that in the coming years, I am part of those people creating solutions or raising a crop of people or an organization that is innovating toward employability, advancement in public health, simple behavioral designs and strategies, right? Sharing this knowledge and experiences in books and facilitating globally and ensuring that not just myself, every organization becomes driven by two key things: impact, impact, and innovation, right? I would like to see us take projects that people would think are failures or loan shots, right? And turn them around, right? I would like
That's
to be a part of organization building this or have an organization running this,
mhm.
right? In that regard, in the coming years.
Amazing. So Martins, who inspires you professionally?
posthumously, I'm very much inspired by the work of Steve Jobs, right? His way of thinking. I'm inspired by his way of thinking, right? His way of thinking, the kind of products he thought about. Every time I go back and I watch his speech, his videos at Stanford and the rest, and when he shares his story and his experiences, his failures,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm really inspired by his life and his work, right? And also, I am inspired by becoming sustainable enough as an individual, as an organization to give to the community. And that is one of the strong works that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation they're doing, right? And so I'm inspired by Bill Gates. Yes, yes, I really am inspired by these two key persons, right? And so if I really want to say in terms of their work and in terms of their way of thinking, how they could see the future and start to create things and infrastructure that will make it possible for others to enjoy all of this is something I find really inspiring. And so it has made me commit myself to want to be someone who creates platforms and opportunities for others to grow as well. Right. That's it.
Yeah, really, really great. And you've done a really great job with it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so which online influencer would you recommend for other designers to follow?
Hmm. Okay. So online influencer for other designers to follow. Um, I have a couple of people I've directly worked with before,
Mhm.
right? In the design space. Their work is not actually the conventional kind of design work that you are or people are actually familiar with. For example, Liz Gaba, right? Her work is quite interesting in how she merges branding and design and also influencing work satisfaction, right? I like the kind of work she does, right? And I recommend that people follow her, right? Then there is Thomas, right? Thomas of Proportion. I like the fact that this design community does not just have like a pool of people having live sessions weekly. No, 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 no. What we do there is we create opportunities for literally everyone to take ownership in the localized context, right? So that it will be valuable and impactful enough for mutual growth, right? So I would recommend that you follow Thomas online if you're interested in anything design. All right. Um, Not only Thomas or Liz Gaba now, I would also recommend that you follow Tris Dyson, right? And then I also have one of my friends in the organization in Senegal that you can also follow. His name is Yan, right? He's actually also very good. Yan Lebu. Yan Yannlebeux. All right, is the founder for UX Design. That is YUX Design, and it's an amazing organization. They were the first to bring out the state of UX in Africa. It's a contemporary report. They are actually currently working on another report as we speak. And so, yes, you can
Great,
follow these three key persons if you want to actually do design related work.
amazing. So, any book, article, can you recommend?
Wow. So if you really are interested in learning design, then I would recommend you read the book by Don Norman. For example, The Design of Everyday Things. All
Yeah.
right. You can read the book, The Design of Everyday Things, and any other book that Don Norman has written. Um, there is also another book right? That's actually quite interesting to read. That
Mhm.
is Creative Confidence. You can actually read Creative Confidence. Then you can read Loon Shots, right? Loon Shots. You can read is by Safi Bakal. You can read Loon Shots. Um, Life by Design. You can also read Life by Design, right? So these are like some books in design that actually you can read. I can send you a list of other books later,
Yeah, that
but
would be
these are
amazing.
like my favorite. Mm.
Okay, how about a TED talk we could watch that is worth seeing?
Yeah. You should see this TED Talk by Roman on empathy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, it's an amazing TED Talk. It talks about how we can build empathy because that is what the heart of the designer should be filled with, right? That's one of the TED Talks that was really, really amazing. So if you want to start, you can start from that particular TED Talk, right?
Mhm.
Empathy. Yeah.
So Martins, could you share with us a challenge or a case study that you have been working on or that you've worked on in the past that you would like to share with us the experience and everything?
Okay. Challenge. Okay, let's just go to the most recent. There are a couple of them. So most recently, I concluded a project with Thomas on is a challenge fund for youth employment or youth employability, right? An
Mm-hmm.
organization that's based in the Netherlands. And what the challenge was that there was a grant that was released for people to create digital jobs and employ or train about 500 youths or more youths and get them empowered on this platform, right? So the clients realized that the implementing partners, right, they were having challenges with training or getting people to participate in their training or create meaningful experiences for people in their training. So Proportion, we were hired to work on that particular project to find out what is wrong and run a sprint and come up with innovative ideas or solutions that will resolve it. So on that particular assignment, I was the research lead. So my assignment was basically coming up with a research team, making sure everybody understood what the theme of the assignment was, coming up with like a research plan, right? Also, coming up with how we're going to approach the respondents, how we're going to properly be sure that we are collecting the right data and eliminate all of the bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then finalizing that report and then planning a design sprint and hosting the 5 different organizations experiencing the challenge, right? So personally, that was the assignment. And so what I did was I was very much involved in the research process itself, like in the contextual interviews that we conducted. We conducted over about 60 interviews, both virtual and then remote with phone calls. And then we collated all of these data. I did the analysis and the synthesis for this data alongside with my team, right? And actually pulled all of this together, came up with design directions and insights using several design methodologies. We mixed and matched what insight fitted what, right? We
Mm-hmm.
came up with personas of a typical user that dropped out, right, of the particular training, and then a typical user that succeeded, a typical user that is a nursing mother, because a lot of women or nursing mothers were supposed to be part of the program, but then they were not able to like start or complete the training, right? Those who started were able to complete, and those who were not able to complete dropped out because of some reasons. We tried to understand all of that, and then we used empathy map to understand how they felt, what they were thinking, what they were saying, what they were hearing, right? So we can tailor their influences, so we can see their motivations and see if there are factors that altered or facilitated their dropout or their success, and come up with challenges and insights that would help the organization to redesign their programs to be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, the outcomes and the key insights there in that particular challenge is you can have one challenge that is being experienced by 5 different organizations, and then you can have separate pain points for these users, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can also have separate solutions for these users,
Yeah.
right? And so when it comes to youth employability and trainings and all of that, right? It's not like people are not interested in trainings, right? Sometimes they are limited by how flexible the training might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they are limited by the payment plan for the expense or the cost of the training. Sometimes their limitation is in the content of the training. At other time, it is in the post-training support that we give. How relevant is the example we are applying, right?
Mm-hmm.
How relevant is the kind of training that we are given? What kind of post-training support is available? What kind of materials and resources? What kind of community are we building around the training? These were some of the key insights that came out, right? At the end of the day, right, we found that uniquely some learners wanted trainings that were flexible, right? Other learners wanted trainings that the payment was flexible,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Other learners wanted trainings that they could see a clear career path in, right? And then we could also see that sometimes the training is not as successful as it should be because of the communication gap within the organization, right? So we had solutions that were designed by the organizations that were responsible or that we worked with, right? And so, for example, we started designing flexible payment plans. We started designing flexible training modules and learning modules, a recruitment criteria that would be able to select and highlight learners that had key interests so that they would see what their learning path would be clearly from the beginning of the training so that they can determine before time that this training is for them, right? And then a communication module that would incentivize people to want to participate in the training, and also a communication technique or platform that will allow the organization communicate from the headquarters down to the local points so that everybody gets the same message and also inspires the same reaction, as it were. And so recently, I got some newsletters from the organizations, and they were even implementing some of the solution. My colleague shared it with me and said, "Wow, I got this newsletter from so and so organization. They're implementing some of the solution that we worked with them on." I was excited, right? Because I'm a person who, even if I'm very much excited, huh, I can smile like this, right?
Yeah.
Right. But I don't immediately jump up. I try to process in my head like all of the alternative reactions that I can get, right? So that was the outcome. It was quite an interesting one, right, for me.
Right. So could you talk us through the human-centered design tools that we use? Was there a specific tool that we use in that project?
All right. Tools. I mentioned already. First key tool, right, was the persona, and then we also had the empathy map. All right.
Yeah.
And then for digitizing all of these tools, we use Miro, right, for collaborative work because my team was not situated in a physical location. They were in different places, right? And then we also created templates that would allow us analyze all of this simply, right? And virtually, so everybody can collaborate, come up with personas, come up with a day in the life, right? To analyze and get more insights into the persona. And we actually use the 5 why methodology for the analysis to understand deeper why some of the insights were the way they were, right? And so we chose these tools because we were looking at certain human behaviors, right, and experiences. And nothing tailors a person's experience as well as a properly defined persona will do it, right? A persona that can capture interest, capture fears, motivations, goals, right? and context or social demographic background, right? A persona will do that for you. An empathy map would now allow you see further deeper into the persona that you built, right? And then a day in the life of that persona would now allow you animate all that you built in that persona. So typically, we want to see that every categorical respondent, right, had like a class to which they belong. So if we had like 60 respondents, there are certain behaviors that are typical for those that dropped out. There are certain behaviors that are typical for those that succeeded. There are certain behaviors that are typical for those that registered but could not continue, for those that showed interest but did not complete registration, right? So the empathy map, right? The 5 whys allowed us see all of this, right? It allowed us see all of this. And also, um, the pros and cons of, for example, of using the 5 whys is you don't have to say why 5 times or ask why 5 times, but you have to ask the why in such a way that you can actually get to the root cause, because we use the 5 why methodology for root cause analysis. So when using the 5 whys, let's say we come up with an insight that says those who started the training always end up losing interest along the line. And then we start to ask ourselves, why are they losing interest? Right? And so we can now say they are losing interest because they have data challenges or electricity challenges, right? And so we can now say, why are they having data challenges or electricity challenges? We can now also see that it's based on their financial level and the fact that they've already spent so much on paying for the training. So we could see that those who are getting there, we have not asked up to 5 whys, but we are seeing root cause that is deeper than the original insight we got at the beginning. And so we can then now say that it's because of their financial disposition that those who initially showed interest, right, can can actually get to a point where they drop out. So it will now be for us to think about how might we design a program or an experience that allows them to start with the same level of motivation and also sustain that motivation till the end of the training, right? How do we ensure that this happens? So you see that there are several behavioral elements, several nudges we have to apply. And so these are now the reasons why I am so interested in how social behavioral communication models start to come in the kind of messages we design to get their interest, right? So that's it.
Amazing. So could you please send like a document or like slides about the tools that were used during that project?
Yes, I could share that with you afterwards.
So looking back at that project, what do you think did not go well?
Okay, looking back at that project, right? It was quite it was quite a challenge recruiting some of the respondents in the rural area because of the relationship they had with the organization. Some of them said the last time they heard from the organization was when they registered, and so they really were not interested in participating in the research, right? So the most challenging thing in that particular project was recruiting respondents, right?
Yeah.
Recruiting respondents. And so next time, I think what can be done differently is when we're recruiting respondents or planning research like this, right? We have already decided that from the very beginning, when we speak with the organizations, so we would decide if we are the ones that are going to directly recruit the respondents or they are going to be responsible for directly recruiting the respondents. And afterwards, would actually like to know if they already had like existing relationship or existing communication with these people or the respondents. And if not, we could think up of innovative and incentivizing ways to like get the respondents to participate in the research to be sure that their interest is spurred. All right. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So what advice would you give your fellow designers?
Okay. For fellow designers, I think basically there is no one right tool that does the work for us as a designer. It
Mm-hmm.
is not the tool, it's the designer himself or herself, right? It is not even the phases of human-centered design you're applying, it's actually the designer involved. That's key. So I would say there are two particular skills a designer should look at developing. The first one is observation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Observation. As you walk through your project, as you interact with respondents, as you ideate and come up with ideas, observe each of the process. Observe each of the process and always look for the crossing lines where experience, challenges, problems, and solutions begin to intersect. And take note of these things. Do not just let go of the observation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then the second key is um, your own innovation as a designer, right?
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to tailor the tool you need. You should be able to create the tool you need for every project. You should be able to tailor um, the process to fit the project. If you're working on an electricity project or a power project, tailor it to the project, all right? If you're working on a healthcare project, tailor it to the project, right? And as you do your tailoring, do not think that human-centered design is just about the users. No, the stakeholders are involved as well. The
Mm-hmm.
stakeholders are involved as well. All right. So if this process must be agile and iterative enough, then it must also be incremental. It must be incremental in the sense that the small adjustments that are required will come from the suggestions of both the stakeholders and the users. And you must find by observation the unique points where your tailoring and your innovation must come in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's it.
Cool. So as you know, Martin, there are these sessions that were put for the community where experts would share the challenges they're working on or a big question that they're having within their field, whereby your fellow designers would interact or share insights with you. So, do you have a challenge or a question where you could ask your fellow designers that could be helpful to you?
Okay. This is it. I already mentioned my interest in social behavioral design. I
Mm-hmm.
think my question to the community would be looking at our unique expertise in several areas, looking at social and behavioral design, looking at human centered design,
Mm-hmm.
looking at agile methodologies and Scrum as it may be, right?
Yes.
Can we start to tailor our tools, our processes as designers to fit, like I already mentioned, each of the projects that we're working on,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, can we start to see and holistically create a solution for the system and not just a segment? All right. So this will be a question for us to think about. Let's say we conduct an ideation session. Are we just ideating for the user experience in the short term? Can we
Mm-hmm.
start to bring the long term into question? Can we
Yeah.
just also consider business goals and profit for the organization without isolating impact? Right? Can we start to see how we can make this process incremental, right? And incentivizing enough to apply nudges to ensure that rewards are given as well, right? Can we marry all of this process and
Yes.
be really innovative? Yeah,
Very,
thank you.
very. You will get. I'm sure you'll get your insights very soon. So this is the end of the interview, Martins. Thank you so much for having us, and I will be sharing a few of your stories within posts online. So, and I'll make sure you're tagged within the post.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Would you, because in the spotlight, would be like to share more about you. Could you please send us a professional picture of you where we could probably post about?
Yeah, I will do that.
All right. Thank you so much for having us, Martin. This
Thank
was
you for having me.
very insightful.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.